excited today. We are going to be talking mainly about the topic of beneficiaries. And welcome to today's class. I'm going to be with you here for over the next hour, more or less. We've decided to put together a weekly class as we've been doing over the last few months, every Wednesday night at 6:30, from 6:30 to 7:30. I go live with you guys talking about different topics on money. Over the last couple months, we've had a topic where we've been discussing about Social Security. We've done classes on taxes. We've done classes on real estate. We've spoken about estate planning, wills, trusts, powers of attorneys. We've had discussions in the area of retirement, of investments, like what's going to happen with the market. And today, this class is specifically designed for all of our clients' beneficiaries. I think that one of the biggest problems that people have is that whenever they're deciding on how to invest their money, how to allocate their money, people don't think about the consequence of the day that they pass away. How do they make sure that the money goes to the right person? How do they make sure that there's no fighting involved in the family? What happens if you put a person that's underage? What happens if you want to put your grandchild? What happens if you want to put a family member? What happens if you die without a will? What happens if you die without beneficiaries? So really today's class is really everything that has to do with beneficiaries. So if you are a existing client of our office, I strongly recommend you over the next 30 minutes, over the next 30 to 45 minutes, I'm actually going to be talking on everything that has to do with beneficiaries. I really recommend that if you're an existing client and you have family that are beneficiaries of your accounts, which the majority of you are, 99% of our clients all have beneficiaries on their accounts. Please reach out to your beneficiaries right now, and you can actually share with them this exact stream. So if you're watching us right now on Facebook, or you're watching us right now live on YouTube, you can actually grab the link, and there's a little button right under that says share. You can share that, and you can send a text message to your friends, family, any of your beneficiaries, so that way they can watch tonight's class. If you're watching right now on on Facebook, down at the bottom, you can actually share this on your YouTube channel, or you can share this directly with your beneficiaries if you're friends with them on Facebook. So I know that we're streaming right now live on YouTube, and we're also streaming live on Facebook. So if you have any friends or family or anyone that is your beneficiary, I strongly recommend that they listen to today's class. A lot of people have no idea of the process of what happens when a person passes away. How do I go about claiming my inheritance? Unfortunately, this is a very scary year when it comes to people passing away. We've unfortunately had two clients that are clients of our firm that have passed away due to COVID in 2020. We've had about 25-30 clients actually contract the virus. I mean, again, we have over 2,400 clients in our office. So, but at least we've had about 25 clients that we know of that have gotten the virus. So this whole thing of beneficiaries and making sure that the beneficiaries are set up the right way has been a very big concern. We actually got a client 2 weeks ago give us a call telling us that he's really stressed out because he needs to make sure his beneficiaries are set up the right way. I asked him, why is he so stressed out? And he tells me, well, because I got COVID and I think I might die. So, I mean, I know I'm kind of making a joke, which is obviously it's not a joke, but definitely, this topic of beneficiaries is something that we all need to be paying a lot of close attention to, because if you have the wrong beneficiaries, your money could end up going into the hands of the wrong individual. Like, people don't think about things like what happens when I die and my money now goes to my son or to my daughter, but then my son and daughter are married to another individual. How do I make sure that individual does not end up taking away those assets that you left your son, your daughter, after you passed away in the case if they divorced, right? So there's a lot of things that come into the whole topic of beneficiaries. And so I'm really excited about today's class. So I'm going to get started in about 2 or 3 minutes. I strongly recommend make sure you grab pen and paper. We're going to get started in literally 2 or 3 minutes. I'm going to just go grab some quick water. And that way I can be with you over the next couple minutes. If you are watching this right now live on Facebook or you're on YouTube, please, if you're an existing client of our office, We just ask you one favor. It's the one favor we ask. Please share this on your channel. We are trying to communicate this topic of financial planning to as many people as possible, but we cannot do this if it's not for our existing client base. We have many of you that are watching. We have over 2,400 clients, and we rely a lot on you guys distributing this out to your friends and family. So please, if you're watching this, if you're getting value out of these classes, if you're enjoying these classes, it's the only thing that I please ask from you is to please just go ahead and share this on your Facebook channel. And those again that have been doing that consistently every week, we really appreciate that, and thank you so much. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and get started in about 1 minute. I'm going to go grab some quick water, and I'll be right back, guys. Take care. Okay, guys, so let's go ahead and get started. If you don't have pen and paper, just make sure you're just taking notes on your phone, or obviously if you're driving, you probably shouldn't be doing that. But anyways, you could always go back in all of our videos. I know that every week we do these, but all of our videos are being saved on our YouTube channel. So we've done over the last couple months, we've been doing so many classes on different topics, whether it's cars, buying houses, just different topics in the area of money. So if you ever want to go back and look at any of those videos on our Facebook channel, on our YouTube channel, they're all saved in there. So you could always go back in and watch them. There's probably well over 50 hours of recordings of content that has been put out there over the last year. So there's a lot of good info on just the area of money. So let's go ahead and get started. I do want to talk about just something really quick that I think each and every one of us, I know that we've been having this discussion over the last couple months, especially with everything that's been going on with COVID and the amount of people that are passing away, the amount of people that are getting sick, the amount of people that are now getting to a state in their health that they cannot even take care of themselves on their own. They're on respirators. They're pretty much quote unquote almost in a coma, and they can't make decisions on their own. This is not an estate planning class. We are not going to be going over the area of estate planning. That's really the job of our estate planning attorney. For those of you that are existing clients of ours, all of you know that you have access to our attorney free of charge. You have a free 1 hour consultation that you can do with her, and she can tell you everything that you need to do in regards to your estate planning. But with that said, I do want to mention one thing. Each and every one of you, I don't care if you're 20 years old or you're 60 years old or you're 80 years old, every single one of you need to have a will. We all need to have a will. We need to make sure that the funds that you have or anything that you have, whether it's a watch, whether it's a car, that the assets that you leave behind go to the right people. So that's what a will does. A will says that this tie, I want to make sure that the tie goes to this individual, that this watch ends up going to the right individual. So that's what a will does. Every single one of you should have that. Now, we're focusing today mainly in the area of accounts. So I'm going to be talking about every single type of account and what is the impact if you have a beneficiary, and what is the impact if you don't have a beneficiary, depending on the type of account that you have. So let's start off with the most basic type of account. Savings accounts, checking accounts, money markets, and CDs, right? Those are the accounts that every one of us, I think each and every one of us, all of us have money sitting inside a bank account. If you have money sitting inside a bank account, it's very unfortunate because whenever I sit down with an individual, I ask them questions about who their beneficiaries are. And then I ask them the question, so when you sat down with your banker, did they set you up with beneficiaries on your savings account? And they're like, I have no idea. So what we end up doing is we end up going onto their bank account with them, and then we find out that their savings account has no beneficiary assigned. So all of your accounts in your bank should have beneficiaries assigned to them. Because if you don't have a beneficiary assigned to them, all of your money is going to end up going to the court after you pass away. And if the money ends up going to the court assigns it based on the law of that state. So in the state of Florida, the money always ends up going first to the spouse. Then after the spouse, it goes to the children. What if you don't like your children? What if one child misbehaves and the other behaves? What if one of them has drug problems, has alcohol problems? Do you want him or her to end up inheriting, all of this money? You probably not. Like, you probably will want maybe someone else to control it. So the reason I bring this up is every one of you that have accounts, I don't care if you're 18 years old or you're 78 years old, you need to have a beneficiary assigned on your bank accounts at your bank. If not, what's going to end up happening is the money's going to go to court, and that's a very, very big issue. And now it goes through a probate process, and then it can take weeks, months for your heirs to actually get that money. Whereas if you just would have chosen, from the very beginning, a beneficiary on the account, your family's not going to run into these problems. So if you're watching this, make sure that your parents or yourself have beneficiaries assigned on your savings, checking, money markets, and CDs at the bank. And again, those of you that trust your banker, I want you to be very careful with that, because you might trust them, but if they're not asking you questions about who your beneficiary is, that means they're really not organizing your account the right way. They're just caring about opening up your savings account. They just care about opening up your checking account, selling you that CD, putting you in that money market. But are they really asking you the important questions? What happens if you die? Who gets this money? How do we make sure that the money goes to the right person? Okay, so that's in regards to savings accounts and checking accounts, money markets, and CDs. Now, I do want to bring up the topic for a second about if you're underage, if you're a minor. So there is a very, very important rule that everyone needs to understand, and I see this happen all the time. I was speaking with a lady today, and she had gone through a divorce a couple years back. She spends about pretty much about 60% of her time. Her children spend time with her. The other 40%, the child spends time. The two children end up spending time with the father. And what ended up happening was, she has no brother, she has no sister, she has no parents. The only thing she has is her two babies, and her babies are like 5 and 4, 3 years old, something like that. And she had inside her savings account close to about $200,000. So what ends up happening is that if you pass away, and a lot of people just say, oh, I want to put my children that are 4 years old and 3 years old, I want to put them as the beneficiaries. That is a massive mistake, like insane. I've seen so many people in my industry, and it frustrates me so much because I've seen financial advisors in my industry that put the child that's 2 years old and they put them as a beneficiary on the account. If you have a financial advisor or you have a banker that is allowing you to do that, you better start looking for yourself another financial advisor or another banker. Why? Because the money will never be given to a 3-year-old. A 3-year-old cannot manage $100,000 or $1 million. And now you might say, oh, but wait, wouldn't they hold it until they turn 18? No. They don't hold it until they turn 18. They will give the money to the custodian of the child. So in this lady's case that I was talking about, if she passes away, the funds are going to end up going to her ex-husband, which she can't stand. And that ex-husband can go and spend her money with his new wife. So the reason I'm bringing this up is you need to think about very clearly whenever you're putting a minor as a beneficiary. Don't ever do that. Now, once your minor turns 18, then that's fine. At 18 years old, they could actually inherit the 100,000, the 500,000, whatever you leave them, they could actually inherit it. But do not make the mistake of putting a 2-year-old as a beneficiary. I see it happen all the time. People think, oh, they'll give it to them when they're 18. That is not the case. They don't give it to them when they're 18. They give it to the custodian of the child if that's what the court assigns. So usually that's what ends up happening, and the court ends up assigning it to the custodian, which many times is the ex-husband or the ex-spouse, and you want to be careful with that. So I hope you guys got some good info from that. So I have a couple other important things that I do want to bring up. So if you die, if you pass away with a savings account, I think we all understand. Make sure that you have your beneficiaries assigned on the account. Okay. Now we'll talk a little bit about passing away with a property for later on. But I really want to focus on what happens if you die with a with, call it like an investment account. Okay, so not a retirement account, not an IRA, not a 401k, not a 403b, not a 457. What happens if you die with a investment account? So let's say that you bought you have an investment account, and usually an investment account you can buy stocks in it, so that's why it's called an investment account. It's usually another name that they call it is a brokerage account. So let's say you put in there 10 years ago $100,000 into that brokerage account, and when you put the money into the brokerage account, you invested it in one stock. Let's just say, as an example, you invested it in Apple stock. Okay, Apple as an example. So you put 100,000 in the investment account. You invested it in Apple. You never sold the stock, so you paid, call it $10 a share for the stock. Now you die 10 years later. Now the 100,000 that you put in there is worth $100,000. So now you die. Any stock that has appreciated in value, when the heirs inherit the stock, the heirs do not pay taxes on the inheritance of the appreciation. That's called a step up in basis. I know I'm getting a little bit technical here, but the heirs do not need to pay taxes on the appreciation of stock. The appreciation of real estate is the exact same thing. So if I bought a property for $100,000, and that property, I held it for 20 years. I died 20 years later. The property's worth $300,000. Now I die, and now my kids sell the property as soon as I die. There's a $200,000 gain. That gain is not taxed as long as it's sold right after you pass away. So that's really, really important whenever you're thinking about investments, or if you have an investment account. Okay. Now, the one thing that I will say that you have to really be careful about is, let's say that you have an investment account, and I see this happen all the time, which is people have investment accounts that they opened up at E-Trade, they opened up at TD Ameritrade, and they don't put a beneficiary. It's the same problem. If you don't put a beneficiary on your account, all of your money ends up going to the court, and then the court assigns it to your beneficiaries according to the law of that state. So the state of Florida says spouse is number one, that means your spouse is going to get it. Even if you guys are separated but you're legally married, your spouse will get that money. After the spouse is the children is next. After the children, it's usually your parents. So if your parents are still alive, then you're going to end up inheriting, your parents are going to end up inheriting that if you pass away. Then after your parents, it's your siblings. And then after that, it gets a little bit more complicated. There's nephews and stuff like that. But you don't want to have your family have to go through all those problems. You don't want to make that mistake of your heirs now having to go and fight through the probate process. Why not you just make sure that the beneficiaries are assigned correctly on all of your accounts? I will take advantage to say something really quick, and I think this is important. So I know that this is kind of creating a lot of questions right now, and some of you are saying, oh my goodness, do I have the right beneficiaries? Should I change my beneficiaries? Well, it's very, very easy to find out if your beneficiaries are set up the right way. So if you're an existing client of ours, which many of you that are watching are existing client of ours, you guys have, the majority of you have investment accounts, or have pretty much you have your brokerage accounts set up through Fidelity Investments. So if you have your accounts at Fidelity Investments, each and every one of you have an online login. You guys have a username and you have a password to log on to your Fidelity account. Okay. Now, as you know, we are the ones that are managing your portfolio for you, but your money is held at Fidelity Investments. When you go on Fidelity Investments, there's a little tab at the top that allows you to see who your beneficiaries are. So if you don't know who your beneficiaries are, just go onto your Fidelity platform, and at the top, you can actually find out exactly who your beneficiaries are. And maybe possibly you've gone in there in the past and you put your baby that's 2 years old as your beneficiary. You want to reconsider that because the money will never go to a 2-year-old. Okay. So with that said, if you have a annuity or you have a life insurance policy, you want to go to that insurance company's website. So if you want to find out who the beneficiary is and you have an insurance policy with Midland National, with North American, with Allianz, with Global Atlantic, you have an account with Symetra, any company that's an insurance company, just go onto the insurance company's website. And when you go on their website, you should be able to find out who your current beneficiaries are. And that way you make sure that you have the right beneficiaries. Believe me, I've seen so many people that pass away with the wrong beneficiaries, with their ex-spouse, with their child that stole from them. We've had clients that their son, their daughter have stolen from their parents, and the parents have wanted to eliminate the child off of the will, off of the inheritance, but they end up forgetting that they left them as a beneficiary on the account. That's why it's very important to do beneficiary reviews with your financial advisor, with your banker. This is very important because your life changes. You end up wanting to disinherit someone. You end up getting into a divorce. You end up having now grandchildren. You have now a son that is above 18. So that's why it's important to review this stuff on a regular basis to make sure that the beneficiaries are assigned in the right format. Now, I do want to say something that is going to go towards all of the spouses. Some of you are going to hate what I'm about to say, but I don't care. I got to be very honest about when it comes to making these decisions for your family, because you making the wrong decision could end up costing your family a lot of money and a lot of headaches. So some of you aren't going to like what I'm about to say, but it is what it is. Many of you that are watching this right now are thinking, okay, Sebastian, okay, so perfect. You tell me to put my children as the beneficiaries. Got it. Makes total sense. But who do I assign as my beneficiary? How do I know who the right person to leave my money to? Because I literally had a meeting this morning with a lady, with a gentleman and his wife, and he was telling me that he wanted to leave 1/3 of his money to his wife, 1/3 of his money to his son, and 1/3 of his money to his daughter. And the son and the daughter was from their same marriage. So I asked him, why do you want to leave 2/3 to your two children and 1/3 to your wife? And they're like, well, because they're my kids and I want to make sure that they're also okay. And I want to make sure that they inherit something. So I go to him, okay, so why don't you ask yourself this question? Let's say that in his case, he had about close to about $500,000 in all of his accounts. So I ask him, okay, so let's say the 500,000, you leave 2/3 to your kids. 2/3 of 500,000 is 350,000. That means you're going to leave your wife with 150,000. Is that right? And he's like, what do you mean? He's like, I'm like, yeah, 1/3 of 500,000 is 150,000. And he's like, okay, well, I mean, at least I'm leaving my wife something. That's literally the answer he gave me in front of his wife. And it's crazy, but I then asked the lady, right, that's right next to him. I asked him, so if he passes away today, you're 60, he's 69 years old, she's 65. I say, if he passes away today and leaves you $150,000, do you think that that will be enough to sustain you for the next 20 years that are left of your life, 20 or 30 years? She's like, there's no possible way that I can live on 150,000. So I'm like, so what would you do? And she's like, well, I would have to go and ask my kids for the money. And I asked her, so what if the kids don't want to give you the money? And she says, I'll force them to. I told her, you can't force your kids to give you the money. So the reason I bring up this topic is, if you're married, I want you to strongly advise you to consider putting your spouse as your primary beneficiaries, and then your children as something called contingents, which means if you die, your wife or your spouse gets the inheritance. But if your spouse passes, then your children are called the contingents. They are next in line. But it's not that the money gets split amongst 3 people. It's the money goes straight to your wife first. Then if your wife passes away first, then your two children are next in line. Now, it gets a little bit more complicated when you have children from previous marriages. And I don't blame you guys that have been married 2, 3, 4, 5 times. I understand that it's very difficult if you have children from other marriages and you've been recently married for only 5 years and you're thinking, oh my goodness, I have my wife. I've been married with her for 5 years. I love her. I want to make sure that she's okay. But at the same time, I want to make sure that I leave my kids money. How do I make sure that my money goes to my wife and I want to make sure she's okay, but I want to make sure that she leaves that money that's left over to my two children? But the thing is, she doesn't have to. If she inherits your $1,000,000, she can leave it to her children if she wants. So how do you protect against that? That's where you go about building a trust. So by building out a trust, you can make sure that the money stays and only goes to the people that you choose. Okay, so I'm bringing up this topic because I think that especially those of you that are married and those of you that care about your spouse, you want to probably put your spouse as the primary beneficiary on your accounts. If this is your second, third, or fourth marriage, then it gets a little bit more technical there, and that's where I think you do really need to speak to a financial advisor or an estate planning attorney that can help you coordinate all the pieces together to make sure that the money goes to in the hands of the right people. We actually had a gentleman pass away at the beginning of this year. He ended up leaving it all to his wife. They were only married for 4 years, and as soon as she inherited the account, she put her two children as the beneficiaries of her husband that just passed away's money, and eliminated the husband's two children as the beneficiaries. And she is allowed to do that. So, sorry if this is creating problems in your house. I apologize, but these are things that we need to think about, and these are the problems that people run into because they don't have a discussion with an individual, with a professional about, putting together the beneficiaries in the right format. So that is really, really important when it comes to deciding that. Now, I do want to talk about retirement accounts for a second. Actually, let's knock out one topic that I think is a big one that a lot of people always ask me is, what happens if I die with life insurance? And a lot of people don't know, but life insurance is probably the best asset that you could ever leave to your family. Why do I say that? The reason I bring that up is because life insurance is tax-free. So I actually just finished setting up 2 plans for 2 clients today. It was about $1 million for him. I think it was about 600,000 for her, for a total of $1.6 million. If they pass away today, the heirs, which are their children, end up inheriting $1.6 million completely tax-free. So life insurance has a very special clause in the IRS code, and the IRS has special treatment on life insurance policies. Life insurance policies go fully tax-free to the beneficiary. So if you leave $1 million, $2 million, $5 million to your beneficiaries, they all get the money completely income tax-free. So if you're planning on leaving a legacy to your children and you're going to pass away with more money, I want to recommend you to possibly consider using life insurance as a better transfer of asset account. So rather than leaving your savings account with 100,000, why not grab those 100,000 and buy a life insurance policy on your life of 500,000? Because with 100,000, you can buy 500,000 of life insurance depending on your age and your health. So why not do that and just leave your son and your daughter or your children or your heirs $500,000 rather than on a savings account with $100,000? So for those of you that have life insurance policies, it's a question that I know I always get from you is, if I die with my life insurance, do my heirs pay taxes? The answer is no. Now, again, make sure that you have your beneficiaries assigned in the right way, that your beneficiaries are above the age of 18, that the beneficiaries are the right people, that you want to make sure that the money goes to the right individual, that that there's no fighting there involved. Okay. Now, I want to spend the next couple minutes on I think one of the biggest problems, and this is the topic of taxes. If you have, I want you to really pay close attention to the next 15 to 20 minutes, because if you have a 401k, 403b, 457, IRA, TSP, SEP IRAs, solo 401ks, FRS drop, and FRS investment plan. You better pay close attention for what I'm about to talk about, because those of you that have those accounts have a massive, massive tax problem that you are going to leave your heirs. And this is really, really important for you to digest, because what your heirs are about to get is a massive tax bomb that you're about to leave them when you pass away with those accounts that I just mentioned. So again, I'm going to repeat them. If you have an IRA, 401k, 403b, TSP, 457, FRS investment plan, FRS drop, pensions, any account that is classified as a tax deferred account, you better get ready what's about to happen, because some big, big things are going to change over the next couple of years, especially with all of those accounts that I just mentioned. So every one of you that have money in those accounts that I just mentioned, those are all called tax deferred accounts, meaning that when you withdraw the money, you're going to have to pay taxes. I think we all know that. But the question is, what happens if you die with that money? What happens if you die with a 401k with $250,000? What happens if you die with an IRA with $250,000? What happens to the beneficiary once they inherit the money? So the IRS came up with some crazy rule this year, but then again, this is the government. They're pretty crazy whenever they're going about making these decisions. So prior to 2020, the government came up with they had a law that said that you can die with an IRA or with a 401k or with a retirement account, and your beneficiaries, once they inherit the money, they're allowed to spread the withdrawals of the money throughout their entire life. So let's say, and we actually had this happen with with a gentleman. He inherited his father's retirement account. He was only 21 years old at the time. So his father left him close to $600,000 in his retirement account when he inherited it. So when he left that money, the son is allowed to distribute the money over his entire lifespan. So what does that mean? That means he can take money out in little pieces. So the benefit of that is if you're taking it out in little pieces, then you pay very little in tax because you're not taking out a boatload, right? But you see, this is what the government did. The government came up with some law this year that said if you die with a retirement account, your heirs are required by law to withdraw the entire balance of the retirement account within 10 years of you dying. So if you die with $1 million in your retirement account, your beneficiaries must withdraw the full $1 million within 10 years of you passing away. You're not allowed anymore to distribute the money over an extended period of time. So that was a benefit that they gave. Now they're requiring the beneficiary to withdraw it within 10 years. So you're saying, what's the problem with that? So now if you have $1 million that is being distributed in a shorter period of time, then that means that the child now has to pay more taxes on all of that money, because now your son, your daughter is making $150,000 at their job. You die with $1 million in your retirement account. Now the $1 million, you got to take out $100,000 a year for 10 years. So now your son makes 150 plus another 100. So now you just put your son, your daughter in a $250,000 tax bracket. You just left a tax problem for your son, for your daughter, because the IRS came up with some crazy law. Okay. So the reason I'm bringing this up is you got to be really, 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 really careful when you're choosing your beneficiaries as your account, when you're choosing your beneficiaries, when you're passing away with retirement account. So this is what happens. If you pass away with a retirement account, with a 401k, with a 403b, with a TSP, with an FRS, with a 457, with an IRA, if you pass away with those accounts, your heirs will need to pay taxes on that money when they pull it out. They will need to pay taxes. But I want to ask you this question. It's a very, very simple question. Where do you think taxes are going in the future? As a matter of fact, let me show you guys something a little bit crazy. So I'm going to share with you my screen in a second. and I advise you to go to this website. So there's a website. I've been sharing this for years to all of our clients. So there's a website. It's called usdebtclock.org. I'm going to share my screen with you so you can see it. So this website is called usdebtclock.org. I have it here on the screen. You should be able to see it right now. So this website is showing us live how much debt the federal government has today. The federal government today has 27, not billion, but $trillion in debt. 27 trillion bucks. So the federal government has 27 trillion. They spend 6 trillion a year, and look how much money they get in tax revenue a year. The government spends 2 times more money than they collect in taxes a year. This is why this national debt is unstoppable. So the question that you must ask yourself is, how is this debt going to be paid off? How is this 27 trillion in debt going to eventually be paid off? And the answer is very simple. The debt is eventually going to need to be paid off by people that are working and are making money. And those of you that have IRAs, 401ks, 403bs, TSPs, 457s, all of you that have those types of accounts, if you're the son or the daughter of one of our clients and your parent has a IRA, 401k, 403b, TSP, all those accounts, when you inherit that money, you are going to have to pay taxes on that. At what bracket? It all depends on the tax brackets that we see in the future. So it is already being said that in the year 2025, tax rates are expected to go up anywhere between 10 and 15% higher than they're at right now. That's only 5 years away. So think about 20 years away how high taxes are going to be. So if 20 years from now, taxes are 20% higher than they're at right now, that means whatever you inherit from your parents in those retirement accounts, you could possibly see a 30, 40, 50, maybe even a 60% tax on that retirement account inheritance that you're going to get down the line. So why is this really important? Because if your parents have IRAs, have 401ks, have 403bs, have TSPs, have these types of accounts, I want to strongly encourage you to speak to them, because what they want to start doing for your benefit, if you're the heir, for your benefit, you want to make sure that that money is inside tax-free accounts. That way, when you do inherit the money, you inherit it clean, and you don't inherit $1 million of which the IRS takes half of it. That will leave you and your brothers or sisters or the beneficiaries. It's going to leave them with only 500,000. So imagine $1 million, government keeps half. You and your brother and your sister, or your siblings, end up getting split 500,000 4 ways. Then each one of you only end up getting whatever, 75,000 bucks each, or whatever the number is. So you need to be very, very careful on what types of accounts you have, and making sure that first the beneficiaries are set up the right way, and use the most efficient types of vehicles. You should not die with a retirement account. You should not pass away with a 401k. You should pass away with Roth IRAs and life insurance retirement plans. I mean, nobody wants to die, but if you are going to die, it's better to die with those accounts, because those accounts bring no tax problem to the heirs when they inherit the money. When you die with an IRA, when you die with a 401k, when you die with a 403b, all of those accounts are going to have to pay taxes when you inherit that money. So, hope that all made sense. I do want to kind of wrap up with a couple very, very key important points. I know that some of you possibly have questions. If you're watching live right now on YouTube or Facebook, you can go ahead and ask any questions down at the bottom section of the comment section. I'll gladly be answering any questions that you might have. Again, regarding the beneficiaries, if you ever have to run into a situation where you have to claim now funds that you are inheriting, pretty much the most important thing that you need to bring, if your spouse, your parents, your whoever's leaving you money passes away, you have to make sure that you provide usually a death certificate of the individual, and usually what you need is a copy of your driver's license, because the copy of your driver's license is is obviously important because it verifies that the name on the account is actually you. Now, another thing that I want you to be very careful with is, some of you have probably uncles, brothers that have similar names than you. So if you have someone in your family that has a similar name, that could be a problem, because imagine your mom passes away, leaves you 100,000. Your name is George Perez, and now your uncle's name is George Perez as well. And so now he wants to come in and claim the money. So that's why it's important when you're doing your beneficiaries that you classify your full name, your relationship, and even some accounts allow you to put the social security number of your beneficiary. That way the money goes to the right George Perez. It doesn't go to the wrong one, right? So you want to make sure that all that stuff is set up the right way. If you're not a client of our office, like, we do what's called a free beneficiary review. It's a review where we're actually going to review all of your accounts, your savings accounts, checking accounts, retirement accounts, and make sure that all of your beneficiaries are set up the right way. There's a lot of small little tweaks in regards to that. We actually created, for all of you that are watching, we actually created two things. We created what's called a beneficiary checklist, where you can actually put in here all of your accounts. You can put in here the type of account, who your primary beneficiary, who's your secondary beneficiary, and that way you can provide this also to your beneficiaries. That way they know this is everything we got. These are all the accounts. These are the primaries. These are the secondaries, and that way they have access to this if you want to provide that to them. Also, if you have we also have what's called a life event checklist. It's an important checklist that you should always go over, usually about once every year, to see if there's anything that's changed in your life. Have you gotten married? Have you gotten divorced? Have you remarried? Have you had the birth of a child, the birth of a grandchild? Have you adopted? Have you had the marriage of an adult child? So if your son has been married, you want to make sure that you're thinking about all these things. What happens the day that you pass away and now you leave your money to your son, and your son is married, and a couple of years later there's a divorce. So you want to make sure all of these things are very well thought out when you're choosing your beneficiaries, because sometimes, I'm sure that most of you that are upwards of your 50s, you want to make sure that your money goes to your son and daughter, and then it goes to your grandchild. You probably won't want your money to go to your son or daughter's ex-spouse. So I mean, maybe some of you do, but I think most people would not probably want that. So they want the money to go down, to the child, and usually the grandchild. So all those things are really, really important. And yeah, so if you want this free checklist, we actually put this together for each and every one of you. If you are watching this and you want to set up a meeting with myself or somebody from my team and do a beneficiary review, if you're watching right now on YouTube, down at the bottom of our YouTube channel, there's a little button that you can actually book an appointment with us. You can book a 15-minute call with us. It's free of charge. We can analyze all of your accounts. You can let us know what accounts you have, and we can see what your beneficiaries are. And then according to that, we can give you the best advice as far as who the right beneficiary is that you should have on the account. And then if you're watching us on Facebook, up at the top on our Facebook channel, there's actually, let me share it with you really quick. At the top of our Facebook channel, there is there's a little button that says book now here. I don't know if you can see it there. It's a little bit tough to see, but it says book now. And you can actually book your appointment with us right on the Facebook app. So if you want to set up an appointment with us, you can go to our website, Guerra Financial Group. You can set up a call with us as well. It's a free 15-minute retirement planning session or beneficiary review session, however you prefer. It's free of charge. We could actually sit down. We can do a Zoom meeting. Obviously, with everything that's been going on, we've been trying to prefer doing these meetings through Zoom or through some sort of online platform. And if you would like us to review that, we can gladly do that. If you want your free checklist for your beneficiary checklist, or you want your life event checklist to see if any of these things have changed. If any of these things have changed on this list, you probably should review your beneficiaries. And if you've changed your jobs, you should review your beneficiaries. If you've done a rollover recently, you should review your beneficiaries. If you've established a trust, you should review your beneficiaries. Make sure you review your beneficiaries on a regular basis, because if you leave your money to the wrong person, That's not something that you're probably going to want. Yes, you'll be dead and you don't care because who knows where you're at. But the point is that you want to make sure your hard work that you've done for 20, 30 years, that all of your money that you saved in your retirement and your houses and your accounts and your real estate and everything you have goes to the right person. There's so many people that make mistakes when it comes to this stuff, and so I just want to make sure that each and every one of you are making the right decision. So if you want to make sure that you have your analysis on that up at the top on our Facebook channel, you can book your appointment. If you don't have Facebook, you're watching us on YouTube. Down at the bottom of our YouTube, there's a link, and on that link, it directs you to our calendar directly, and you can actually book a time and slot to actually have a conversation with us in regards to your beneficiaries or anything else retirement related. Part of what we do, we offer the community a free retirement planning session where we are going to organize everything that has to do with your retirement, at what age you want to retire, what are your expenses, what's your social security, what's the best age for you to get your social security check based on tax factors, life expectancy factors, a lot of factors that we analyze. We look at your gap, we look at your investment portfolios, and then what we do is we figure out how much money you have and how much money you need that money to generate for you on a monthly basis to cover that income gap once you retire. So we offer this to the community free of charge. If you're watching this for the first time and you want to set up an appointment with us, you can gladly do that. So with that said, if you have any last questions in regards to your retirement, your money, you can go ahead and write it down in the comment section. We'll answer all of your questions later on tonight. Or if you want your event checklist, just make sure you text the letters GFG to the number 484848. That's GFG to 484848. If you want your free checklist, we'll gladly send this to you by email tomorrow, and that way you can have that. So with that said, hope you guys had a wonderful, wonderful night. I hope you enjoyed tonight's class. I hope you guys got some good value out of it. And next week, we're going to be having another class. Still don't know the subject yet, but stay tuned. Next Wednesday at 6:30, we're going to be going live, having another Wednesday night webinar. Have a wonderful night, guys, and stay safe.